All right, guys, I'm Brian. This is Tech Therapy. I'm here with our very good friend, Stop the Fomo. Fomo, how are you today, brother?
I'm doing so good. Happy weekend, man.
Dude, amazing to have you here. This is actually a tech therapy video on the long-awaited drop of the Sony A95L QD-OLED Master Series. This is the most long-awaited TV since the A95K dropped last year. It's also the last TV of the year. It had been delayed and then dropped early, and our good friend FOMO went and scooped it up at the Best Buy distribution center. Now that's already been covered in his 10 live streams, which I've been part of. But what I want to talk about today, FOMO, is the journey of the A95L. It's
What a journey.
the fear of missing out that we've had kind of all year. Then there's the do I buy the apprehension of do I buy the G3, the A90 or the S95C, the S90C, all these great TVs released throughout the year, Hisense, TCL. They have to watch our reviews all year long, and they're watching these TVs drop in price, but they're waiting for the last one.
Yes.
And then becomes a new part of FOMO. Wait, do I buy? Do I do this? What do I do? So let me know a little bit of what you thought about the journey of the A95L before it got to you. But our conversation since CES last year, where the A95K was so late in the year and our own people had buyer's remorse. So talk to me a little bit about your journey so far with the A95L.
So for sure, this tech therapy video, it feels like it's therapy for me. Let's just get that out of the way.
It's our second one, by the way. We did this one already.
Yeah,
But
we
go ahead.
attempted to shoot this video before. So I'll take you to the journey, and then our first draft tech therapy, and then I called you back to say, you know what, we have to do this again because my opinion has changed again. Now at CES, the A95L was not even announced, right? Sony skipped out on CES completely, and then we found out later that they're going to have their own little event in February or something like that, late February. And then they did, and then word was out that it's, you know, twice as bright, 200% brighter, you know, just a lot of hype. But what does that mean? Was it twice as bright in vivid mode? I mean, there was no clarity, right? And then they actually said twice as bright as last year's model, the A95K. I'm like, last year's model is pretty bright. It wasn't quite as bright as the S94, S95B, but it was bright, and it was brighter than the G2, and it won the shootout as a result. But when they said twice as bright as last year's model, like, whoa, you know, so people got really excited. I'm excited, you're excited, and then Robert's very excited. So we have the shootout set up, and then we find out from Robert, okay, it's coming in a little bit later, July, which is fine. Last year, you know, July. So we pushed the shootout until August, and then we find out, wait, it's going to come out maybe in late August. And then, wait, September. And so the shootout is now pushed to the end of September. Where we are today, September 30th is the shootout where the A95L will make its official appearance in the wild, right? And so we're all like, okay, all right, that's fine. You know, it's coming out late. And then later, as we get closer to the actual release, Sony changes its press. It is no longer twice as bright as last year's model, the A95K. It's twice as bright as most OLEDs. Like, is that what, the LG C3, B3? But so they're starting to temper our expectations, and then it's vivid mode now, right? So the vivid mode is twice as bright. So we're like, okay, what does this really mean? And then some calibrators have been able to see it early because, you know, they're calibrating these TVs. They have access, and, you know, they're under an NDA, so we're not going to name who these calibrators are, but they're showing with us, hey, it really is bright. I mean, and so now there's a lot of mixed messages, but bright what? And they're like, well, we can't say much, but vivid mode is really bright. I'm like, okay, fair enough. I mean, that's great, because up to this point, you and I have seen the S95C and the G3, and the G3 is the reigning champion of just super bright, vivid mode, bright white. I reviewed it, and it is my choice for sports. It is super bright for sports. Even the S95C in its brightest mode could not compete with vivid mode on the G3. Sports content, I mean, they nailed it for sports watchers. And not to say the S95C is a slouch, but if you want sports content, the G3 is the way to go. Yeah. I'm thinking, oh, is the A95K going to threaten, or the A95L, is it going to threaten that, right? And so, okay, whatever. I'll see it at the shootout with you for the first time. And then suddenly it's available last week, like literally last Friday. It's only been a week since I got it, right? I get this text from Klaus. He's like, hey, you know, Best Buy snuck it out again, which was what happened with the S95C. I was like, what? So,
and boom, the S95B, by the way,
right?
Last year,
and the S95B.
Setting the stage, right? We, Robert Zone of Value Electronics, pushed back the shootout. We're expecting to get it probably a week before, give it its break-in period. In the meantime, we were the first to do G3 versus S95C, which was months and months ago. So in the meantime, our communities, our combined communities, have all this time to process, is the A95L going to be worth it? It's also releasing so late, FOMO, that it's going to cost a lot more. The other ones have dropped, but there's a new SoC. There's all these promised features.
Right.
So
the MediaTek, the Pentonic chip,
so if you think you want it, you can't. So I guess the whole idea of this whole tech therapy video, guys, is FOMO, buyer's remorse, and then paralysis by analysis.
Well, let me tell you my FOMO. I forgot to mention, I did not intend to get the A95L. I told
you to come see it in New York.
I told everyone, it's like, you know what? What's the point of getting it if I'm going to see it at the shootout?
Yeah.
Because it'll be the first time I see it. Why own a TV that I'm going to just thoroughly be familiar with when we're at the shootout, all of us together? I will make that my review.
See it calibrated, everything.
Right. Yeah. Calibrated, pre-calibration numbers, after calibrations. I'll be sitting there for 5 days straight with all the calibrators. We will be beating it to death. No reason for me to own it. But that was when it was supposed to launch late September, early October.
Yes.
And now it's out. I'm like, okay, this is true FOMO. And if you guys check my community page, I have FOMO. I got to get it because of all the excitement about the extra brightness from the calibrators and so forth. And Robert was surprised. Okay, so this early release not only surprised us because their press release actually said October as when it's available. It surprised Robert because he wasn't supposed to receive it until the very end when he has it ready for the shootout. So he's one of the few retailers that was supposed to get it early in order to prepare it for the shootout, right?
We would have seen it a week. So we would have seen it, FOMO, a week early at the shootout.
Yes.
So that whole thing, but I think the FOMO you're describing too, just so you guys know how dedicated FOMO is, I get a phone call, are you free tonight? Or no, are you free tomorrow? I'm like, why? He goes, because the TV's down the street. I'm going to pick it up. We'll do the whole unboxing, everything. We'll do it. And I'm like, oh my God, this guy's going to go spend, what, $4,000?
$3,500 for the 60. And thank heavens it was only the 65-inch because the S95C snuck out at 77. I had to, was it below $4,500 for the S95C here? I'm like, thank heavens it's only 65 inches. But so then that takes a turn, right? So I go, I get it. You're there. We do our stream together. My first time comparing the A95L to the G3 to the S95C because I haven't seen it compared. I just got it set up. And the minute it was done setting up and I got familiar with the settings, brought you on and we saw it together. And I have to say, boy, was I underwhelmed and disappointed.
So what's funny for you guys that don't know, not only were we disappointed, but FOMO and I had laid eyes on every major TV at CES. So we could actually speak with specificity about every model except for the A95L. So when FOMO does these unboxing / live streams, he's organically going through the settings the same way you guys, the way we all were. And he was bummed. I was definitely just trying to still be optimistic. That is still on. I think we did 5 hours. That's still up there.
Oh yeah, people are watching it. It's like it's an unboxing. Before there was no firmware update available yet. By the way.
So, but here's his FOMO. This is what I love about what we're talking about with tech therapy. For those of you that don't know what the channel is, the FOMO he has, and he's in this industry. How about all the people that pre-ordered? Now they're thinking, okay, I can go get it. A lot of them didn't know the particulars FOMO that they couldn't put it in their cart. They had to go to the distribution center. So now people are moving their pre-orders from like a Value Electronics to a Best Buy, yet still can't get it. And
And
then
you have to drive possibly, like I had to drive about an hour. So even though my distribution center is in Southern California, still an hour away in the middle of nowhere.
So right away, it causes that unease where people are kind of calm. They've waited the whole year. They're not committing to these other brands, even though they're dropping in price, and they're watching all these reviews that we do.
They're returning TVs because it came out just in time within the return window.
Yeah, within the return window. So now FOMO is live having his own FOMO. People that are watching are, and I'm going to set this up real quick. They have FOMO because they've pre-ordered it at a store that's not going to be available till September. Now all of a sudden they have to try and do the PlayStation 5 thing and see if they can get in. And then in the meantime, some people pre-ordered it, paid for it, and now FOMO, they're white knuckling it through our live stream.
Yes.
4 or 5 people, 500 people watching are like, it doesn't look good. It does not look good. And then talk me through that roller coaster for the consumer, FOMO.
So as a reminder, first, Sony didn't expect, and I'm sure of it, did not expect Best Buy to release it early through its distribution center, because Robert was told very specifically when that official date was. Yes. So he couldn't sell it until it arrived to his, so he was surprised. So, and he's a diamond dealer, which means that he has access to the best Sony products before anyone else. But yet Best Buy had a loophole, and this is speculation on my part, because it's a new distribution center, they were still able to get it out through distribution. So Sony, since Sony does not know that it's out there, they didn't expect to be releasing any firmware updates, which raw, no firmware updates. It's whatever it was out of the factory. Yeah. And so when I got it, a few things were broken, right? One of them, and this was an ongoing issue from the A95K. So this is something that was an issue, which was HDR10 tone mapping above a certain brightness was just not very good. And we saw this at the shootout as well. Under 1,000 nits, it was fine. Over 1,000 nits, gradation preferred, it just didn't do it. It was still kind of clipping, and brightness preferred definitely clipped. And so you had to go into Dolby Vision for that brightness to be pulled down and controlled. But now the entire APL dropped. So in Dolby Vision, the G3 killed it. It beat the A95L because the Dolby Vision of the same content we were using, The Witcher, the Dolby Vision, both of them accurate mode. The G3 Dolby Vision specular highlights noticeably brighter. We're talking.
So this is the A95L before the update.
Before the update.
Okay.
And I was, and we did this on my stream again. So my second stream, I'm like, is my TV broken? Because I was running through these different settings, going from off, the tone mapping, off, gradation preferred, brightness preferred. Nothing was working. I ran it through some Spirits and Muscle content, and this was after the firmware update now, right? So I get a firmware update. I wanted to test it, and I was just like, something's amiss. And so I left the second stream still disappointed. So the first stream before the update, I was disappointed. The second stream after the update, I'm like, maybe it made the TV worse because I don't feel it. And so I bought a second Sony, thinking maybe my A95L that I had was a bad panel. So I went out to Best Buy and got a second one. So now I'm
clarify, you got, so guys, he didn't return it. He got a second one. So the credit card's getting hit for the second time.
Yes.
But think about what we're saying. Really quick, going back to CES, just so that you guys remember the journey of the A95K. TV released in the summer. Very expensive. S95B was dropped on the public on FOMO's channel, which is still up there, at a bargain price. G2, it knocked the G2 out of the way. But the A95K came out so late in the year that by the time our guys started to buy it at a slightly reduced price, FOMO and I were in the car at CES last year when the S95C news dropped of its brightness and the G3 news. So many of our own people at A95K were feeling burned. Though it's an amazing TV, it's excellent, one of the best ever made. That's leading up to some of the apprehension, buyer's remorse, and FOMO of the A95L. So it's not like this TV is just organic.
Right.
And I think the clipping we saw with the A95K was to, one, keep the signature, and two, perhaps trying to keep the panel safe. So now, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Continue.
But now that we're in the A95L, again, organically, guys, I'm watching the stream with FOMO going through it, and all those emotions come back. And all of our people, and I wish you, if that chat is live still, right, Fomo? If you go back, you can still see the chat.
On. The stream is
go
on.
back and see that chat, because anybody who was liking Sony that day was like, every Samsung guy, LG guy or girl was like, ah! Well, and we had people.
There were a lot of people on the fence waiting, and I saw a lot of commitments. S90C it is. So boom, boom, boom.
S90C.
Like clicking, right, pressing S90C.
And then there was
size
not
for the
looking
same
good.
price.
Yeah, but not looking good. It's not looking good. And then we had people, again, white knuckling it. And that was streamed too. But FOMO, I think you do such a great job of being so honest, because you're showing your honest thoughts organically. But I will tell you, if it wasn't for YouTube and the ability for you to go through several live streams, most professional reviewers that are written would have written that, shipped it, and that would have been the review. And that review lasts forever.
Yeah.
So now share with me the rest of the experience, please.
Well, I forgot that the one takeaway from our original stream, where although, okay, when I say disappointed, it wasn't so much that it was a terrible TV, but rather, why aren't you getting an A95K? Remember, we left leaving thinking it's like a brighter A95K, slightly in vivid mode or something like that, right? But ultimately, I left thinking it has amazing audio. So if you need a flagship TV with best-in-class audio, get the A95L, because the audio saved it organically. Like, oh, thank God the audio is good, because I don't know how I can say this is a flagship TV other than it's an A95K, slightly brighter in certain modes, right? Dolby Vision Vivid was super bright, was super amazing. But who watches Dolby Vision Vivid for sports, right? You have to go through a Chromecast and put it in. I mean, it was. So now I have two TVs. One with the firmware update, which is the Sony, the first one, and the one without the update, the one that I just got, the second one, to compare, because I wanted to make sure before the update, after the update, and then I update the second one to make sure that it wasn't the TV. And also I spent a bit of time with Classy to get the different patterns on Spears and Munsell, because we wanted to thoroughly look at all the various brightness levels and then play with gradation preferred, brightness preferred. And what I discovered was that first, without the update, it was definitely worse.
Okay.
The gradation preferred and brightness preferred weren't really working at all. With the update, it worked perfectly, meaning now HDR10 up to 1,000 nits, maybe 1,200 nits or so, it allowed that specular highlight to reach its max while tone mapping everything around it. So you get all of the detail, but the brightness remains. In the past, it brought the whole brightness down. The entire TV was less bright in order to maintain the detail. But now, with the update, it matched the G3. And that was the most unexpected part, is the G3 has always done well with its peak specular highlights, especially white clouds. The Sony matched it. It's like, boom. And if anything, there were some scenes where it was slightly brighter than the G3. And this is, again, not sports. I know this is in the G3's cinema mode, most accurate mode, and the Sony's professional mode with gradation preferred, and on the G3, dynamic tone mapping off. In cinema, where they are the most accurate to the source, the Sony was able to go a little bit brighter, about a stop to 2 stops brighter on my camera. And I was like, whoa. So this is where I erred during my comparison. I put in Spears and Munsell 10,000 nit content. Sony didn't tune that. It did not tune its TV to tone map 10,000 nits. Number one reason, there's no such thing as 10,000 nit content outside of Spears and Munsell. So they didn't want to waste their time. 4,000 nit content, 2,000 nit content, Sony also ignored. Below 2,000 nits, now the tone mapping works. So I went through all these different contrast patterns to discover that. And ultimately, if you put in real content, and now also if it's too low, if it's like, because we also use content where it looked like it didn't work, below, let's say 800 nits, tone mapping doesn't work. It doesn't need to tone map. Yep. Natively, it could show everything below 800 nits. So even if you turn it off or gradation or brightness, it does nothing. And so that was the issue, is my comparisons were with content where I had no control over the actual signal brightness. I didn't know what it was. It wasn't until I used Spears and Munsell, I knew exactly what the source brightness is supposed to be. Then, kind of methodically going from the brightest to the least bright, we found that sweet spot where tone mapping, gradation preferred, works super well above 800 nits, below 2000 nits, right? That's the sweet spot, which is exactly where Spears and Munsell did not. I mean, they were like, they have super bright, super not bright. So now I know exactly how this TV performs, put it back on. And I was like, okay, it's not twice as bright, but the fact that the A95L, after the firmware update with Netflix, The Witcher, in its accurate mode, can actually get a little bit brighter. It tells me that that's how bright it's supposed to be. Whereas the G3, in those white cloud spectral highlights, where the G3 with its white subpixel was supposed to push it hard, couldn't do that. I was like, okay, this is an accomplishment. I am thoroughly impressed. And then I went through all the other different stuff. So vivid mode is super accurate. It's super bright, super accurate, but not as bright as the LG in vivid mode. But the LG in vivid mode, I think, is a specialist mode. It's for sports watching. It really is. Yeah. Otherwise, standard mode is what is similar to the Sony in vivid mode. Even the Sony in vivid mode is very accurate. So I'm not going to knock it down too hard that its vivid mode isn't super bright, because I'm looking at it as a cinema enthusiast TV. Yep. If you want sports, Sony A95L really, you're wasting your money. Get the G3. But if you want a well-balanced TV, some sports, you really love movies, and some gaming, whatever, I have to say now, with amazing audio, this is the best all-around TV for movie watchers of 2023, bar none.
So I'm gonna back it up.
It's so good.
So I'm gonna back it up, guys. 2 live streams ago, or after our first live stream.
Oh wait. I forgot. Our first tech therapy was me, depressed.
Oh yeah, so I filmed this already, guys, and I'm glad we didn't put it out because, but back to the first live stream. As soon as we end these live streams, of course, we always talk before and after. And FOMO had said, "Look, without the update, it was by no means a bad TV. It was incrementally better." And unfortunately, though, what it did, FOMO, was the recommendation was to buy the A95K. Unfortunately, if you needed 77, you were forced to buy the A95L.
Yes,
and
if you wanted all the Sony benefits,
yeah, and audio was really the only benefit. But that was where, even in a normal TV year, guys, if that TV released normally alongside the G3 or S95C, incremental upgrades happen. But by giving us this long wait, delaying it, coming out at a premium, it is also a Master Series, so we have no guarantee, FOMO, if there will be a 2024 model. It puts so much pressure on itself. And it's also probably not going to drop on Black Friday. So for you to be able to, and this is where I got mad love for you and nothing but respect, all the hours of him figuring this out, guys. And this is what the people say, your live streams are too long. Guys, he is... What I love about what he does, and I've been there with him, you're seeing him figure it out. Unlike him behind the scenes, oh yeah, in 5 minutes I did this, I did that, and this is what it is. You can see him learn along with you. But and this is the thing with influencers, right, FOMO, being first, many people would have done his content and sent it back, called it a day. So by taking the week and a half, or it's only been a week. Tomorrow will be it's today. Today would be a full week. You've made these discoveries, and now you've come to the conclusion of it is the best all-around flagship this year.
Yes, and so a lot of people say, well, what about the S90C, S95C? The S90C continues to be my editor's choice. Of course. I mean, 77-inch. Look at the price.
Value is the conversation there.
If the Sony is slightly better, I will emphasize the 77-inch size, it is not $2,000 better.
Of course. Yeah. It came out 2 days. Well, actually, it's out a week early. So
right. I mean, it is better, but maybe $500 better. Yeah. And at $2,000, you're just like, okay, editor's choice S90C, no change. However, money, no object, where you want the best. This audio puts it over the top. Because a lot of you may not be watching content like, you know, The Witcher or Sweet Tooth, where these little specular highlights are 2 stops brighter than the G3. I mean, will you notice that? Probably not, but you will notice the audio. This audio just destroys S95C, S90C, G3. And when I say destroy, it's not even close.
Oh,
I mean, it's sad, right? The G3's audio is the worst of this group, by the way.
Okay.
And so when I tell people, when you get the G3, just throw in a soundbar. It doesn't even need a subwoofer. Just throw in anything. A $99 soundbar from LG will change your life, because it's unacceptable that the G3 audio is that bad. And it's unexpected that the A95L audio is that good. And as you know, audio is a big part of cinema watching. Course, I mean, a lot of you don't know. I have like a full Trinov Genelec 11.4.4 system here. And so I know audio really makes a difference. And this is the first TV, other than what you saw earlier, the Sharp XLED, right? XLED, which I cannot wait for you to compare. This audio truly is flagship. I was disappointed with the S95C audio. I mean, average at best. The fact that my Hisense U8K and TCL QM8 audio were better than all my flagship TVs was a slap in the face, right, to flagship consumers. I mean, even your U7K, very loud.
Yeah.
This TV will blow. It deserves its label as a flagship TV in all the right ways. And upscaling, low bitrate YouTube, it looks the best upscaled in terms of sports content. I mean, well-rounded.
So we have the XR Clear this year on all the models except for the X93. X93 is still excellent. What I love about what you're saying about the audio, though, FOMO, is last year, even with the A95K, had better audio. And it's what I love about Sony's chunkier design and build quality. Even the A90J Master Series, you can clearly see it's a Master Series, where the S95C is very thin, the S90C very thin, the G3 is all the same thickness. There are, you do have to cut some things out. Speakers is clearly one of them. But to your point, to be able to have, that's where it's okay to add the price. It's also calibrated in the factory. We saw that FOMO's comparisons were against 2 calibrated TVs, the G3 and the S95, and the A95L never looked not accurate. And that was very impressive. But where I was shocked with the comparisons yesterday, because we did a live stream yesterday, was in many of the scenes, not only was the A95L much brighter and the whites, the shadow detail was still there, and it just had an overall better looking image. So I actually was very impressed, because we talk about this as enthusiast FOMO, with incremental upgrades. When they're a little better than that, we're very happy.
Yeah.
So I would say, you know, now I'm so glad we reshot this that I can easily recommend it. I'll do my own review, but I thought as a tech therapy video, us going through all the not seven stages of grief, but the excitement, of grief, denial, denial, and all these different feelings that, and people, we're doing another tech therapy video next week about this, where your escape becomes your prison, because you guys do put a lot of emotion and feelings into these purchases. If you look at the comments, none of those comments are logical. They're all from the heart.
And
you know,
I want to make sure that our viewers and our fans know that I'm just like you guys. Rather than return the TV, I had to know for sure. Was it the TV? Is it me? Am I missing something? I had no choice but to get the second TV and compare it, because maybe it is me. To assume that the TV is broken is a bit presumptive, right? Oh, you know, I'm perfect. It's got to be the TV. Turns out I didn't choose the right content to see what Sony did. And what surprised me is its ASBL, the temporal dimming over time, on the Sony is less aggressive than either the S95C or the G3 in HDR content. If you guys saw our live stream yesterday, every time I paused it, the other 2 TVs dimmed faster and more. After 3 minutes, the Sony.
The Samsung.
So now the Sony's like, I'm going to show you now.
So the Samsung looked like it was off. And
right.
I go, is it off? He goes, no, that's still on.
So for those who are complaining about game mode, this could be the TV for you. Now,
Yeah.
This does not, we did not do any game testing, right? But I'm telling you right now, this is definitely designed for the PS5 because I forgot to mention, I think the PS5 has the remote gaming ability.
Yep.
The A95L is capable of doing that with the PS5. So you can play via the A95L as long as you have a PS5 connected, using their PS5 remote function. So I see where Sony's going with this. And the PS5 is right now the most popular next-gen console out there. I think it's going to be outselling the Xbox Series X 2-to-1. I mean, and their next gen is going to even be more powerful. Microsoft's already checked out of the hardware. Like, you know what? It's going to be online gaming. What's the point, right?
Yep.
So they're conceding this hardware spec thing to Sony. And I'm hoping the Sony TVs start catching up so that if you have a PS5, it'll be a no-brainer to get a Sony TV, because I think what they're doing with the A95L is a great indicator of things to come.
Absolutely, and that's so funny. I know we've talked about this in the past, FOMO. People really assumed Sony PlayStation, Sony TV. They don't really speak. Sony PlayStation actually is a totally separate thing that goes with whoever TV. So they'll play nicer with Samsung because they sell more TVs. But if you can get to where you can easily recommend that they play well with each other, then it's a no-brainer, because I think the A95L now is an excellent TV. Now, look, the game bar is anemic compared to the other manufacturers, even TCL and Hisense. However, as a console gaming machine, it's going to be perfectly fine. If you're a PC gamer, you're going to want to take advantage of 144 hertz. You're going to want G-Sync, FreeSync. But as a console machine, I think it's an excellent, well-rounded machine. And I'm going to put you on the spot, FOMO. Is it going to be the next king of TVs?
Okay. Yes. I mean, I shouldn't even taken a second to think about it. Mostly because we already know it does so well near black. A95K nailed it perfectly. Now, the S95C could probably match it. But seeing that its specular highlights was actually brighter than the S95C in its most accurate mode, it unexpectedly may win HDR impact on the subjective test. And that may not be, now you start adding up the points. The Sony A95L, in my mind, I'm adding up the points, is going to get there, because after calibration, now out of the box, no doubt, it is so accurate out of the box. I forgot to mention that even on day one, despite our underwhelmed disappointment, with the expectations built up, it was out of the box so good already. And so that makes it a no-brainer for many people who either don't have calibrators where they are in the rest of the world, or don't want to spend the extra $400, $500 for calibration. No worries with the Sony. It is that good with the skin tones. Both TVs matched up very well. And so, but once you calibrate the other TVs, you raise their level, and some may argue lower Sony's advantage. Its brightness, headroom, in its most accurate mode puts it over the top this year. I think because of that, my prediction is, and since I'm not a voter, there's no bias, but my prediction is the A95L will win it.
So you will see us hosting. FOMO and I are hosting. You're hosting. I am co-hosting the event this year. We're going to bring you a crazy amount of content, and but the amount of context you've put behind the A95L in just a week's time, not just the commitment of buying one, but two, being responsible in that regard. And to be honest, guys, I know FOMO very well, and he's the most honest guy out there. You have Classy, you have KG, our whole group. He easily could have killed this TV, been done with it, and had more views killing the TV than taking the time to actually figure out where its strengths are. It was raw, it was early, and just for proper context for you guys, even in its bad state, it was still excellent. It just wasn't worth the wait. Now, for the way we look at things, it looks like it was worth the wait. And because it's an enthusiast lineup, FOMO, it's an enthusiast TV, it is worth the price. If you're looking for value, Master Series are very rarely the value. But in the end, FOMO, it's very highly recommended, and you're very happy with it.
Oh, if this is your budget, get it. It's the audio is, because you're saving money on calibration and getting a soundbar system, right? In my opinion, the best soundbar system for the money is the $800, when it's discounted, the Samsung Q990C, $800 on its website. Like, that is such a good price. And then you add But then the Sony, you might not need a sound bar. I mean, it may not be as good as a $100 sound bar, but now you're like, okay, I could save on a sound bar. I could save on calibration. It ends up evening out if that was your budget to begin with. Whereas with the G3, you need to get it calibrated. There's no doubt about it. It has to be calibrated. It has color shift issues and near black, shadow detail issues. You got to calibrate the corrections back in. And even then, some people still complain over green tint, but it's better with the calibration. And then you have to add a sound bar. Ultimately, why waste the time? Just get the Sony A95L unless gaming. And so that's another different discussion. But I am now impressed enough where I could say, okay, it would have been a tie or you know what? But I think for me, it's a consensus use case for most people that the A95L is deserving of being the best TV of 2023.
And in closing, FOMO, I think this year, probably more than ever, the processing conversation, that is their signature, that is their badge. I saw on every TV they released this year that it was more than just market speak.
Yeah.
It is legit.
And we forget the context. When the A90J released with a heatsink, we thought this would be the brightest. Nope. It was not the brightest. As a matter of fact, I was like, wait, is it kind of dim with a heatsink?
Yeah.
And then the A95K, nope, not the brightest. S95B was brighter. And then the G3, clearly brighter. But now the A95L, even with all the competition, it is finally delivered on the promise of brighter specular highlights that the Sonys have been very conservative, right? Because they wanted to preserve shadow detail. Well, now it's all there, all the gradient detail, all the gradation details, and you get the peak brightness of the source. That's difficult, and Sony did it. So.
And then you add the upscaling that they do better than anybody.
XR Clear works.
XR Clear, and then the reality creation feature, which has always been something a lot of Sony fans love. I've seen on every other Sony this year, A80L, X90L, X95, you can max the reality creation and not cause aliasing. And I can imagine the A95L, it is only better. So FOMO, thank you for taking the time for coming on and redoing this video with me. This isn't a review, but
this is the release therapy, right?
This is, he sat with me as therapy, and I appreciate you also, again, taking the time to buy the two TVs, spend your entire week, because we're going to be doing shootout stuff all week. Next week, this guy spent the entire week to figure this out. FOMO, thank you so much for coming on, my friend.
Hey, anytime, buddy.
All right, check him out. Stop the FOMO. You guys know who he is. Like and subscribe. Thank you guys for watching. Love you guys. Take care.
All right.